webinar. Welcome everyone. So my name is Tiago Costa, and as I was saying, basically I'm an independent contractor. I'm also an MVP, an MCT, and I work as doing a consulting job and training other people. If we talk about Wintelect core services, so we do consulting, also instructor-led training, which you guys should just come and take that. Also on-demand training. So if you have like a specific, let's just say, class that you guys want to take, but we don't want to hear this and this, you can just contact Wintelect Services and they will provide you the best class experience for you guys. So that you guys understand some of the trainers and professionals that work there. They wrote a lot of books. Right now, the number is over 30 of them, so that you understand the knowledge of all those professionals. Some Microsoft-related highlights. So they are gold partners. Also won the 2016 IMCT partner, the Gold Partner Award for the US. The CEO of the company is a Microsoft Regional Director. Also, DevOps Competency Partner. They have multiple ALM Rangers, so they will have a lot of experience in application lifecycle management. Also, a Xamarin Premium Consulting Partner, and other like Visual Studio integration partner, Azure Cycle Partner, ALMs, etc. Okay, so we have a bunch of people that are pretty experienced in what they are doing, so that they can provide a very good service. I always start my presentations, webinars, by just a small fun thing here. So this really happened to me one time. This I just stole from the internet, to be honest. That is, if you are having coffee in the morning doesn't wake you up, just try to delete a table in production. That for sure, okay, will wake you up. So our agenda for today. So we have a very good agenda here. We're starting with a little bit what is Microsoft Azure, like a small introduction about what's Azure. Also, then we are going to talk about specifically about the app service, traffic manager, CDNs, and then SQL databases. So talking about Microsoft Azure, so second largest public cloud provider. Currently, Microsoft has 50 Azure regions, which is more than another cloud provider. And the bet that Microsoft is doing today on Azure, it's really massive. It's really a huge effort that they are doing, so that every partner can help customers migrate to Azure, and also helping that customers to migrate to Azure. So we get a lot of support from Microsoft product teams and engineering teams, so that they can help us with the more challenging workloads that we might have. And I always say, why Azure? Well, there is a huge demand. Customers are really asking a cloud solution. In some geographics, well, it's kind of a starting thing now, not that huge, but across the United States and Europe, that's really huge. I think I don't know any company that it's not on the cloud, or it has a plan to go, or by some constraints, they are very unhappy and they just can't go. And I always say that it's pretty fun to work with. Why? Because it's like, when I'm doing a consulting project, I'm doing a consulting project today. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a very similar consulting project, but the project is different. It's not like in the old days that we're doing the same thing all over again. The thing here is that maybe we have new services that we can use now. So we are going to use new services. Or usually this happens more times, is that we're using the same services, but they have new cool features for us to use. And that's pretty cool. Also, the pay-as-you-go model that they have, so we only pay for what we use. That is pretty cool, comparing to what we have when we're doing the same thing but on-prem, which we have servers and a data center to manage and all those costs. So talking a little bit about cloud models. So we have the on-prem model, which we need to manage everything. So let's just resume to that. Then we have the cloud, the first cloud model, which is the infrastructure as a service, where it's managed by Microsoft, everything related to virtualization, server storage, and networking. So we don't need to manage all that. We need to manage all the upper part here, like the OSs, so we still need to patch, and we still need to run like virtual machines. And if the virtual machine is running on the cloud or in the on-prem system, well, it really, for certain functions and certain professionals, they're just doing the same job. So there is not a big difference there. If we go then for a platform as a service, for me, this is where things start to be fun and we start to get a lot of gains here. Like, for example, the app service plan that we're going to talk today. So we do not have OSs to manage. We don't have middleware and runtime. Everything is managed by Microsoft. We just need to focus on what our company do. And we just need to focus on our business, so data and applications for our business. We don't need to basically to understand and be worried about managing all the rest. Then we also have another model like the software as a service, which is the most known product here in this module will be Office 365 in the Microsoft world. So talking about regions, as you can see on this slide, Azure regions, we have currently 50 Azure regions. All of them are available like right now. Some of them are just announced regions, but we have a huge expression out all the world. So the US, it has a lot of data centers. Europe also a lot of data centers. Asia also had a lot of data centers, but now Microsoft Azure is growing in other geographies. If you guys work, for example, for a global company, and I have like some global customers sometime, and they really, this is major for them. Like, for example, having a local geographic like Africa, or like, for example, in the United Arab world. So that's pretty important for us to have all those geographics. So Africa and the Middle East today, they are still not open for the public, but they are going to open pretty soon because they are announced regions. But talking about regions, there are like two very special regions. We see just Germany region and the China region. Why? Well, Germany, one of the Germany regions, the original one, is managed by another company. It's not managed by Microsoft. So there are certain concerns, certain services that we don't have there yet. Some services that take more time to get to those regions than we get in other regions. So that's, be careful using those regions when you're like architecting a solution or something. Really make sure that those services are there, and if the services are there, they will have the features that you are expecting them to have. The same thing for China, is managed by also a local partner. It's managing that region there. When we talk about Azure, we always talk about pair region. Oh, it's a pair region, the pair region. So basically, we have a region, and then the pair will be another region that it's usually in the same country, like if they are like in Europe, for example, or in Africa or in Asia. But the idea is to have like a different, like a big distance between them. Microsoft says in the documentation that the distance will be located at greater than 300 miles apart when possible. When they just can't do it, like, for example, when you have like a small country or something and they won't have two data centers there, so they will not be able to do the 300 mile. Talking about portals, where I manage all this. So the current portal is portal.azure.com. That's the portal that you guys should worry about. Why I still have here reference to the old portal? Well, that's easy, because you can read certain documentation on the web. And if you guys see like something saying manage.windows.azure.com, you just close that tab, okay, and just look somewhere else for the information. That's the old portal. You no longer have access to that portal, okay? So just don't worry about it. Talking about Azure Portals, we also have the Azure Portals. We can also manage everything through PowerShell or to Bash. And we also have client libraries. Everything goes through a management service API, which is pretty cool because you can also reach that management API by yourself. So you can build your own tools to manage Azure, which is quite nice. A very cool feature that I really love, it's called the Cloud Shell. In the Cloud Shell, within the browser, I can run PowerShell and Bash scripts. So on the top of your Azure portal, you have a small icon there that you can just click there, okay, and you can just, for example, open the Cloud Shell. The Cloud Shell will open this screen like in the bottom of your screen. I just zoom it in here, and then you can just run small PowerShell scripts. Pay attention, this is not running like those long-running PowerShell scripts that we have, or huge bash scripts that will take like forever to run. This is just for small things, okay? Because if you want to run all those, there is other services like Azure Automation to run them. So let's do a short demo here. So I already have the Azure portal open here. So let me just put it here. So if I click, okay, there we go. In here, the Cloud Shell, see that on the bottom of my screen, and let me just zoom in this. Okay, we will get, it's just requesting my Cloud Shell, and then right now I can just run commands here. Do I need to log in? No, you do not need to log in. So that's one of the cool features about this, is that you do not need to log in, because I'm already logged in my browser, so I don't need to log in again like I need in a PowerShell window or in a Bash window or something like that. Okay. So, and then of course in the portal I have the dashboard. On the dashboard I can just put several things in here. So I already created some services for this demo. Then I can just check, for example, my resource groups here on the left. And there we go, they will open. I can just click in some of them and this will open, and I will see all the resources inside the resource group. More interesting things in here is that if we just click here where it says all services, so these are the all services that we'll have on Azure. And this is just for, yeah.
Tiago, I'm not seeing what you're clicking on here. We're just getting your major screen.
So you're not seeing my browser?
Nope. I'm just seeing the Azure App Services screen. That's it.
The Azure App Services. Oh, you're just seeing my presentation yet. Okay. So let me just. Can you see it now?
Yep, much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, well, I just clicked it on the top here, and that this is just opened the Cloud Shell. And what I was showing is the all services. As you can see, okay, the all services is really a lot of services. And this is what I just wanted to show you guys. It's like there are really a lot of services on Azure today, and it's pretty hard to keep up with it. So let's focus today on the Azure App Services. Can you see my PowerPoint now, where it says Azure App Services, and I have a series of bullet points?
Yep, all set.
Okay, thank you very much. So what is the Azure App Service? It's a scalable platform that we have. So it's a platform as a service platform that we have. So we don't need to create a virtual machine. And then, for example, if it's a Windows, just install IIS and then create websites and all of that. So we really don't need to do that. So I just need to go through the portal. Again, I can also do it through PowerShell and Bash and just create what we call an app service. And then I just need to deploy my application to that app service. So in my case here, I can just do it through Windows or Linux support. So in the back, of course, there is a virtual machine for sure. And those can be Windows or Linux. And integration with development tools. Like, for example, if you're a Visual Studio developer, like a Microsoft developer, you just need, and you can do everything, okay, within your Visual Studio. Also the same thing if you're more of an Eclipse person, you can also do the same thing. Of course, if you want to integrate this with ALM processes, of course, you can also use, like, for example, Visual Studio Team Services. You can also use GitHub, etc. Okay, there are a lot of other open source tools that most of them also today, they integrate with Microsoft Azure. And this is an open platform, so it's not only for .NET applications. You can also deploy PHP applications, Ruby applications, Java, Node.js, you name it. All of those are supported in the platform, okay? You get a standard domain name, like something like the app name that you give, .azurewebsites.net, like right away. Then, of course, there are other features, like we have web jobs. If you have, like, for example, a long-running task that you need to do, that's a web job. You can just use them. You can also do custom domain names. Instead of that something .azurewebsites.net domain, of course, you can have like mycompany.com, something like that. I can also get auto scaling, which is one of the pretty cool features that I'm going to show you guys today. Is that based on the demand, I will get more instances or less instances if I get less demand. And so I will, spend a little bit of more money, more Azure credits, but my solution will perform pretty well. If I have less, let's just say, load on my solution, I don't need like to have like 10 or 15 instances, so I can have less instances, so I'm saving Azure credits. Then we also have another feature which is called deployment slots. Okay, deployment slots, also a pretty cool feature that allows you to create some, for example, development environments like a dev slot, staging slot, etc. And also, there is a pretty cool integration with other services. Like for today, we're going to check, for example, the traffic manager. We're going to do a demo on traffic manager, but we can also do a CDN integration, so content delivery network, based on data that you have on your app service. So we need to start to talk about something called the Azure Service Plan. So when you create a service plan, this is what you're going to be billed for. So there are a free one, which is, well, free, you don't pay. There's a limitation of 10 per subscription. Then we have also another one that's a share it. So both free and share it. So they use shared compute. Okay, so there is still your website is going to be hosted in side by side with other ones. So the performance is, let's face it, it's just not sometimes what you need and what you're expecting to have. If you go for the shared, you also start to get cool features like, for example, custom domains. The free doesn't have custom domain support. If you go for a basic, you start to have dedicated compute. So you need to choose, I want that specific size of compute, like 1 core, 1.70 gigs of memory. And you can have 3 instances on this. And of course, you can grow to have more instances, or you can just have less instances, but everything is what we call manual scale. So you need to go there and you need to put more or less instances on it. Then, of course, we start to have the second one in terms of the dedicated computes, which is the standard one. We start to have more instances, so 10. We have deployment slots, we have traffic manager, we have daily backups on this. And also, one of my favorite features is that you guys have auto scaling. So we can have metrics on this, and based on the metrics, it will grow to more instances, or you have less instances based on the load that you have. Then we have other two services, which is called the Premium and the Premium V2, where you have more features, okay, but that's not the focus for today. All this runs with the Web Deploy protocol, okay, which is quite interesting and quite good because we can have in a safe communication between your where you have your source code and Microsoft Azure, so that you can deploy your source code in a safe way. It's interesting because it detects the differences and it only deploys what is different. So it doesn't deploy the whole application from scratch. You can also deploy through FTP if you want. That's also possible, but I've probably everyone or most of you guys know, it's that probably FTP, it just doesn't understand what's different it is. So you needed to understand that your own, and you needed to understand what to send and what not to send. So talking about app settings, so in a very, very easy way, there is a part where I can just go there and just, for example, put my own settings and my own connection strings, everything configured through the Azure portal. This is the UI that you will have. It's similar to this one. So you just go there and you just click on things. And for example, I have like the item count there, 13. Okay, I have an API key, for example, and the good thing is that my developers, they do not need to know the production values there. I just deploy them. For example, let's imagine it's an ASP.NET web application. They have a file called web.config where they put all those values. But the API key, they are putting the API key for their environment, not for the production environment. That's the job of an IT pro that's managing all this. And you can just come here and just put this, and this will overcome, so we'll have priority against, okay, that file, against the web.config file, which is quite, okay, which is quite nice. So let's do here a small demo, and let's create, okay, an app service. So you can see my, I'm assuming that you can see my Azure portal again. So I'm going for the app services here, and I'm going to create one here. So I already have some of them created here that I just prepped so that we don't need to wait for everything. So I'm just going to create, and when I'm going to create, see, there's a gallery of applications. So probably you guys know like WordPress, for example. So I can just search here like WordPress. Okay, I can just search for this, and there we go. So WordPress on Linux. This will create an app service with WordPress already installed on it. So you don't even need to upload the packages, okay? This will just deal with it, okay? Today, we're going to create a blank one. So I'm just going to select Web App from Microsoft. And now we are just going to click Create. This will open a small screen here. So I just need to give you a name. What is the app name there? And I'm just going to click like Intellect Demo. Okay, so there you go. This is done. I'm just calling the, what is the subscription that I want to put all this. And I'm just saying that it's going for a resource group that already created here called Webinar Demos. And for me, I'm just going to say it's a Windows OS. And I'm going to create a new app service plan. So, and
hey, Tiago,
I'm just going to, yes.
Can you make that a little bit bigger? We're having a hard time reading it. Your font.
Okay, yeah, of course. I can just put it bigger. It's better now? Or do you want even bigger?
Just a little bit bigger?
Is that okay now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So I just call it demo as plan, okay? I need to say, okay, what is the location? Let me just say, for example, will be East US. And now I need to choose what is the pricing tier. So this is all the pricing tiers that I was talking about. So click here and just loads. Okay, as you can see. So there we go. We have the free one. I have the shared one. Then I have the basic, and the basic, we have 3 of them. The difference is the compute capacity. So 1 core, 2 cores, 4 cores, and then we have more memory. For now, we just go for the standard. Then you guys can just come here and just check yourselves this a little bit better and all the things that you have, but resume, it's what I just told you. So let's just create, okay, and now let's just press create, and this will just create our web app today. So there we go. So it's creating, so our deployment is in progress. We can just close all this, okay, and you can just click here on this alarm, and we see that is being deployed. We can even click on it and just see the steps. I'm just going to leave it there to be deployed because I already have done another one that's in here, okay, this Wintelect East US app. So it's already deployed so that we don't need to wait for it. Sometimes Azure takes a little bit of time to finish this because probably it's creating a virtual machine in the back, or it's just using an already created. They have like a pool of virtual machines there, but you need to set up everything, so it takes a little bit of time. So So there you go. So this is our application. And as I was explaining, so here on the left, we have application settings. And this is the screen that I was showing you. So there we go. Just wait a little bit. There we go. There we go. So application settings, I can just add a setting, like for example, like item count, okay, and then just put a value in here. Okay, there we go. I just need to press save. I can also do the same thing. Let's just close this. I can just do the same thing for a connection string, for example. Just come here and just set up, okay, a connection string is pretty easy to just put. Is the same thing, okay. What is the kind of controller that you want, a SQL Server on-prem or a SQL Azure? This can be also a virtual machine, okay, or a MySQL, and then basically you just put a key and what is the value, and that's done. Okay, just press save. I'm just going to delete this one. I'm just going to save this. So there we go. Just close this. Oops, not that one. Let me just open the app again. There we go. So as you can see here on the top, okay, so over there, so in here, so there's a URL. If I click on it, just going to open the default page because I didn't deploy anything yet there. So there you go. Here on the left again on the menu, I can also go to deployment slots, for example, where you can just create the deployment slots that I was talking about. And really, to create a deployment slot, you just click here, add, okay, like for example, dev, and you just press OK, and you just created a deployment slot. Okay, so it's pretty easy. And as you can see there, the name of it, it's the name of your app, okay, then dash, and then the name, okay, of the deployment slot. This is another application. So I can deploy to this application, and then here on the top, as you can see here, okay, you can swap between those two. Swapping means you're going to just change DNS entries, which is pretty simple and pretty fast. So you don't need to redeploy your application to production again. So production and dev, for example, they will just swap each other's. The good thing is, okay, it's now under production, the new version of your application. Yeah, great. Then you found, oops, there is a big mistake here. You can always have like a backup plan and just re-swap again things. And production will be production again. And the dev will be dev again. So you can do that. That's not normal. Usually we test a lot so that doesn't happen, but well, sometimes it might happen. You might have some surprises. Okay, so this is what we have in here. Then of course SSL certificates, custom domains. So everything is managed through here. So I'm just going to talk now about a little bit about auto scaling so that we can set up auto scaling too. So talking about auto scaling, we can schedule based on some performance metrics, like for example, CPU. Usually it's more about CPU and memory. You have more performance metrics than the ones that I'm showing here, but those are mostly the ones that you're going to use. Or if you're using a web job, so let's imagine I have a web job, and by the way, this is based on a real project that I have. I have a web job that just creates a PDF file, and it's happening all the time. So what I have is that I have a queue where I put messages on it. So I have a web application. The application just put a message on the queue. And then I have the web job that's checking the queue if it has messages or not. If he has a message, it means he needs to create and generates a new PDF file. What happens is that, well, the web job, it's not very good for me to measure the performance metric based on CPU, because when I'm creating one PDF file, I'm using 100% of the CPU of my app service plan. So, well, this will just grow. Then I don't have anything for it to do. Then it will decrease, and it will just spend all day doing this. So you can grow based on the numbers or on the count that you have on a message queue. So just say that queue over there. And if, let's imagine, I'm comfortable having 20 messages in the queue waiting for being processed. So that's your number. Okay, so if you have more than 20, you need to grow another instance, and that will be the number that you have. Of course, I can always have a minimum number of instances and a max number of instances. The min number that is recommended, it's always 2, so that you can have high availability. If Microsoft needs to do maintenance on your host, so yeah, they will probably need to do maintenance on your host. So they are probably going to do something. If something happens on it, you might be affected. But if you have 2, that risk really gets pretty low. And that's from where Microsoft does their SLAs based on the service too. You can also have a max number of instances so that you don't get a huge bill in the end of your month, of your Azure month. So let's imagine I have like a minimum of 2 and a max of 5, for example, because up to 5 I can pay. More than 5, I'm just not sure about it. So let's do a demo on auto scaling. Okay, so let's just create here an auto scaling. So I can just say that I want to scale out here on the left on our application. And as you can see, this is the manual scaling. I can just slide this, okay, and then there you go, 5. I can slide up to 20. Sorry, up to 10 because this is a standard one. If I wanted 20, I needed to go to the premium one. So I can just say 5. I can just press save. I'm not going to do that, and it will just create 4 new instances. Okay, so that's good, but I still need to come here. Okay, I prefer this feature here. Enable auto scaling. So let's click on that. I need to give a setting name, and I'll just say like demo auto scale setting. Okay. Resource group, webinar demos. Okay, that's good. And then I need to basically, based on a metric, I already have it selected, so I need to add a rule. If I add a rule, and I'm just going to accept the default one that's in here. So let's just revise it. It's the average. Then we have the CPU percentage. Then we have the average. So based on the average, if it's greater than 70%, for the last 10 minutes, I will increase my number of instances by 1. So, okay, that's cool. So let's add this one. I like this one. Of course, I need to do another rule that this one also average CPU percentage, okay? And I will not say greater than, I will say less than. And let's just give here 50%, for example. So if you're lower than like, let's just change for 40%. Come on, I don't need that many instances anymore. So I can just say decrease the count by 1 instance. So I can just say this. So let's just add this one here, okay? So there we go. And now here on the bottom part here, as you can see there, so we have the instance limits, okay? So the minimum, in my case, I will say 2 because I want the high availability thing that I was saying. And I'm just going to say, okay, so, and I have, of course, a max of 5 because, well, that's what I can pay. I can't pay more of that. And I just need to save this, okay? So, and this will basically save my configuration. And yes, so what happened here is that this subscription that I'm using doesn't have, and by the way, if you guys do a free trial or an Azure Path thing, you need to register this, the Microsoft Insights, okay? So we need to just register the namespace of Microsoft Insights because it's through Microsoft Insights that they will monitor our web app. So it doesn't matter because in our case, we are just going to see this here until here, so that doesn't matter, okay? So let's close this. So this is the auto scaling thing. It's pretty easy, okay, to set up. And what I have done here is that I created 2 web apps, okay? Just focus on these 2 here. So I have a Wintelect East US because it's running on the East US region of Azure. And I have this one here that is running on the West Europe region of Azure. So now let's talk about creating a global application. So until now, I just had 1 application. Yeah, I can have several instances, yeah, whatever. But I'm just having them in 1 unique region. So what happens if I have like a major failure on that region? Well, your solution is just going to be offline. So that's where it enters another service. and that service is called the Azure Traffic Manager. The Azure Traffic Manager, it's no more, okay, than a load balancer, but as platform as a service. So you don't need to create something like a virtual machine for it or something like that, okay? And it's pretty easy to set up. So this, of course, it will connect to service endpoints like a web app, like we just were doing here now, but also for cloud services and also for Azure VMs, and even now for specific endpoints like an IP address. So whatever you have with an IP address, you can just connect to this, even if it's an on-prem, if something that you're running on-prem. Improve availability for critical applications, responsiveness for high-performance applications, for example, because what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create an Azure Traffic Manager profile that will basically deal with the load, and I'm just going to connect to both, okay, of the web apps that I will have there running. So, of course, perform service maintenance without downtime, because if you need to do maintenance, let's imagine in an Azure VM, you can do it without any issues. Okay, so that's also pretty nice. Okay, also here we're talking about performance service maintenance. Combine on-premise and cloud-based applications that I was talking with you guys. So, for example, I have a customer that they have a solution that they wanted to keep it on-prem, but they wanted to create a backup for that application. So in case of this doesn't run, we want to have like on the cloud, basically a backup plan. Okay, so we just created a web app for them, Traffic Manager, and then we have Traffic Manager always goes to the on-prem solution. Only if the on-prem solution is not responding is that we are going back, okay, to the cloud solution, okay, because they wanted to give priority for the on-prem, well, based on certain regulation that they need to follow, okay. And of course, distribute traffic for large and complex deployments like the ones that we're talking about, like a global application. I have a solution for a customer that using the Traffic Manager, we have our solution deployed in 8 Azure regions currently. And each region I can scale individually. For example, in the US, we have more demand than, for example, on Asia. So, for example, for us, the US, we have 3 regions, and in total, we have around 40 instances for the application. In Europe, we have 2 regions currently, and we have around like 9 9 instances. It's more than enough to keep up with the demand that we have on Europe for that. So we can scale, see, individually each region. Okay, so let's see here some more slides. So what happens is that the Traffic Manager, for example, let's imagine this is our user. Our user just goes and just hits like the contoso.com domain. So there is on the DNS server a CNAME for this contoso.trafficmanager.net. So we go to the Traffic Manager, and then we have an algorithm. Let's imagine that we choose the geographical algorithm. So what happens is that I'm going to detect from where this customer is. Let's imagine, oh, it's from the US. Okay, so it's from the US. So I have my web application deployed for West US, West Europe, and Japan West. Of course, this one here, it's just the best one. So what I'm going to do is that, oh, okay, so I'm just going to send them, okay, the connection for this one. So it's just going to start to send and just get this one. This is totally transparent, okay, for the user. The user doesn't even understand that they are eating a traffic manager, all that, because they just don't see it anywhere. So to create this and to configure something like this, so we just need to add a DNS CNAME record. Of course, in the DNS, you just need to do this. Create a traffic manager profile, configuring the DNS prefix for the traffic manager, and then configure the load balancing method. The one that I was talking about was this first one, geography. And then, of course, add the endpoints to the traffic manager. And let's go back a slide. In this case, those 3 things here will be our endpoints. Okay, so let's do this. Okay. So let's do this. So here on the left, I can just come and just select Traffic Manager Profiles. If you don't see this here, what you can do, you can just click Create a Resource, for example, and then you search the Azure Marketplace. Okay, traffic, oh, Manager Profile, that's it. The search works here. Amazing. So let's click Create, and there we go. So now this is our Manager Profile. So I just need to give it a name. Pay attention that the name needs to be global unique because it's going to be a subdomain for this trafficmanager.net domain. So I'm just going to say demo webinar. Okay, let's see if this is, oh, it's available. So I choose the routing method, so geography. Choose the subscription, the resource group where I want to have this. There we go. And I just press create. And this will basically create our traffic manager profile. Okay, so let's just remove all this. So this is, oh, that's pretty fast. So let's go back here to traffic manager profiles. I already have one that I just created before the webinar. Okay, so that if we run into issues, so demo webinar, so the one that I just created, okay, demo webinar there. And what I need to do now is that I need to create endpoints. It's really as simple as this. Endpoints, add, then I just need what type of it is. In my case, it's an Azure endpoint because it's a web app, it's running on Azure. But you can also choose a nested or an external endpoint. So in my case, there you go. I just select it's an app service. I just need to give it a name, like for example, East US endpoint. Okay, and then I need to choose what is the app. And of course, I need to just come here and, oh, this is the app that I want. Okay, and you see there the Azure region where it is. Okay, so just click this one. Oh, it's good. And now regional group, it's where I say that, okay, so users from North America, Central America, and Caribbean will access this. If you want to be a little more picky and just say, oh, they have to be from the US, okay, so we can also do that. And you can choose United States. And if you really want to be pretty picky, you can even select the state, okay? So probably some customers already request that. So we'll just press OK, validation succeed. So it's basically creating our endpoint. There we go, done. Let's just close this. So there we go, we have it here. Still checking here the endpoint, see over there. So it says checking endpoint. So after a while, it will just say that it's ready. Okay, so let me add the other one. So Azure endpoint again, and I will just say, so West Europe endpoint. Again, yeah, it's an app service, correct. And let's just select our target resource. This is the one, West Europe, correct. And for this, I will just say Europe, okay? And again, you can also choose a country, everything, okay? But I'm not going to choose that. So there we go. So if we refresh this, see, the first one is already online. So basically, it's just detecting if there is something there, etc. So it's pretty easy what we can do with this. And there we go. So now, if we go to overview, what happens is that if I click on this, okay, and in my case, I don't have a CNAME with a custom domain and everything. So I'm seeing my app, okay. Of course, I could just deploy something here. But of course, what happens is that I'm going to see, because I'm based on Europe, by the way. So what I should see here, it was the European version of my app. And for example, if you tried at home, and most of you probably are in the US, you could see basically the one in your region. The idea is to deploy the same app. Okay, it's not to deploy different applications. You could if you wanted, but it's to deploy the same application everywhere. And the thing is, if I have more visitors from the US, I can scale that, okay, over there. If I just have another one, I could just deploy the other one more, and that's a pretty good thing that we can have. Okay. Sorry. So talking about now about, of course, yeah, usually, well, it's pretty useful to have web applications across the world. And what about our data? Because, well, you have data. So I'm not going to talk about deep about SQL database. We could just do a webinar about this, but it's just a fully managed database solution. It's a SQL Server thing, almost the same as the on-prem version that we have. But they are built for high availability. So there are a lot of copies of your data, etc., that guarantees that you will not lose your data and that your database solution is always up. So we have a bunch of service tiers, again, like the app service, where we have more and less features. Once again, I just talk here about, we have a basic and standard and premium. Premium is for production environment. Standard, well, we can have companies running stuff on standard for sure. If they are really, well, if they are not like hugely large companies, etc. Basic, it's really through just for testing and development. And even sometimes really doing developing on a basic, it's kind of a challenging thing, okay? Because it's just too slow sometimes for if you have like a big application, etc. So then we have something here that we call DTUs, which it goes for database transactional units. So that's what you get here. It's basically compute power for you. It's based on a metric that we just gave, input output. It gives memory and CPU. The feature that I want to talk about you today is geo-replication. This is a feature that we have in all the tiers. And the idea is to geo-replicate your database in a pretty easy way. So what I have done, because of time concerns here, I already had created, for example, the databases and all of that. So let's close our traffic manager profile. So let's go for our resource groups and webinar demos done. So I already have here, for example, let's just check this. So I have a sales database here. So it's a SQL database that's on the East US server. So let me just click on this database. So, so we can see here the query editor. So we can even do queries and run some commands in here. So I just need to log in. In my case, I just selected a SQL authentication. Let me just put my password. So you see it's bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. So there we go, it's logging. So there we go. Okay, tables. I just have one table, okay, called customer. And I can just open this table here, just edit data, for example. And yeah, we agree with this. This is just under preview, it's what it's saying. So we just need to say, I agree. So it's just opening our table. See, we can do this in Management Studio if you want, okay? But you can also do it through the browser, and it's cooler doing it through the browser. So I'm just doing it through the browser. So I only have 2 customers in here. So let's imagine this is a huge database. Okay, so what I can do is that, oops, I can just go to geo-replication. And let's just wait a little bit. So it will just detect where my database is. So there you go, it's over there. And let's imagine that I want to send it, okay, hopefully I'm clicking on the right one. No, I'm just clicking on the wrong one. This is France Central. Well, I can just click in here. This is it. That's this one. Nope. Work. Okay, I can just always click in here. Okay. West Europe. There we go. You could just click on the map, but I don't know, the map is not working. And I'm saying that I want to geo-replicate my database to West Europe. So I click on target server, and I need to have already a logical SQL server there. In my case, again, for time concerns, I already created one. Sorry. So I'm just going to select that one. And the pricing tier is what I pay. I pay per database here. So I'm just saying, yeah, it's a S, okay, 0, which is fine because it's the same one that I already had, okay, in the original one. So just saying here, I'm just saying, okay, and there we go. So I have a secondary now here, and this means that it's creating the database on the other side when we can just get it here. So it's initializing, okay, and it will basically seed all the data for us in the other, okay, in the other side. And believe me that this is really, really, really fast. Yes, it does this in a synchronous way for sure. It's not synchronous. So that means that when I'm putting data, I have an acknowledge because I wrote the data in the East US one, but then it's going to be sent all over the world to West Europe, the region, and it's going to be written there in an asynchronous way. Okay, so there might be some loss of data, etc. I can use this database to query, and I can also use this database if there is a huge failure in the East US region for Azure. I can always reroute, okay, my applications to use the West Europe data. So I can turn the West Europe, which now is a secondary database, I can put it as a primary database. Okay, so this is what we can do so that we can grow our applications. And to be totally honest with you, I didn't show a single service that we need to have virtual machines or stuff like that to configure. This is purely platform as a service with a small set of configurations. Everything that I did here, I can do in PowerShell, but I can also do through the portal if I wanted. I can also do most of this through ARM templates and put this on the ALM part of our application, etc. So the only part that I didn't show is about the CDN. Okay, so let us just check. Okay, the CDN part here. So let me just put in here. Okay. So CDN endpoints. So global, basically the idea of CDN it stands for Content Delivery Network. You probably already used some of them. If you're like going to a website, there is a lot of JavaScript libraries, like for example, jQuery, and you can put jQuery on your website, or you can just use the CDN of jQuery. What it means is that instead of you having your JavaScript files locally, you can have those files hosted somewhere else, and you just give the URL, and the browser, when it's loading the page, just goes to that URL, and that URL will just give you the files on the most near endpoint that you have from you. So basically, the Azure CDN, what it does is that it just uses two networks. You can choose the network that you want, which is, if it's Verizon or Akamai networks, the one that you should choose, it really depends where your customers are. So you can check under the documentation where you have more endpoints or not. The data can come from an Azure storage account. It can come from, for example, a web app. So you can have, usually we are talking about static files like images, JavaScript files, etc. And what happens is that we have the origin, which is like, for example, an Azure storage account where we put in some photos there. And now we want to show those photos on our application. So what happens is that those photos are going to be copied and cached on that CDN endpoint. Okay, so it's pretty easy to achieve this. That cached content will have a time to live of 7 days by default. You can change this, of course. And the big advantage, and going a little bit further, is that, for example, let's just check this here. So well, not this one. Okay. So let's imagine that I have an Azure storage account somewhere in Europe, and then I have a customer here, a client that is connecting to our applications from South Korea. So what happens is that content, it's here, so it's going to be on the fly copied to the CU POP, and then our client is just going to use the copy there. That copy is going to live there for 7 days. Of course, the same thing will happen to several other POPs that you have across the world. And this is just an example, like Tokyo, Paris, New York, Seattle, because usually the networks have really a lot of them. So we can just grow a lot with this. And this is pretty cool what I can and what I can't do with this. Okay. So there we go. Okay, this is how you can create a global web application only using PaaS services on Azure. In the case of Azure Web Apps, and using the SQL database, Traffic Manager, and CDN. I hope if you enjoyed, and if you have questions, just go ahead, okay, and do some questions.
Tiago, can you see the questions that they've asked so far?
Not yet.
Okay. There are a handful of them.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I can only see one question, but it's not even a question.
Oh, if you scroll down, you can see that Adawait asked you a question. Will you be covering? Okay. Will you be covering how to use ASE? Do you see that?
Yeah.
You know what? If you click on the bigger button on the right-hand side, right next to the X, it will blow up the screen of the questions for you.
Yeah, got it. There we go.
Okay.
So are there any public websites running on Azure environments, or this is just for enterprise apps? So no, this is totally public, okay? And that is usually a concern for applications, for companies, sorry. And that's why we have the AZU, which is the Azure Service Environment, which gives you a small, like a set of privacy, because you can run it also for public if you want, but you can run it only for private. So you have a connection to a virtual private network, and so your data is not through the internet, it's only through the private connection that your on-prem environment will have with Azure. You usually have like a site-to-site connection, a VPN connection, or an express route, something like that. So, but there are a pretty large set of examples of huge companies running their public websites on this, and also private applications. Okay, even using what we saw today, the Azure Service Environment, it's a little bit more costly. Okay, let's just say this. So that's usually a problem for certain companies. Okay. Then I have another question. Can you connect app service to on-prem? Yeah, so yes, you can also connect this to a on-prem database server. There is several options to do that. You can integrate this with a virtual network, and then if the virtual network is connected through like I said before, a site-to-site VPN connection, so you can reach your on-prem environment. So what happens is that you also have another option, which is called a hybrid connection. And through an hybrid connection, you can also do that. And not only for database, but even for other services that you have on-prem, like a REST service that it's only private and you don't have a connection. The hybrid connector can also get you to do this. Okay. So just see more questions. How do you get the key? I'm sorry. Probably this was related to something that I was showing. I didn't saw it. Alex, if you're here, can you rephrase what keyword was? Okay. Okay, that was because I was not showing the portal. Okay, etc. Can you use geo-replication to fail over an on-prem database? No. This only works for Azure SQL databases. But that's a good feature to ask, Eric. Okay, maybe we can ask that for Microsoft. And I think that's it is. Oh, I have another one. On the same about on-prem databases, can you utilize the service bus and data gateway? So yeah, so that's that you can also use that one. So you can also use the service bus. Using the service bus, you have a kind of a service bus that just will act as a proxy. Okay, so you can also use that one. Okay, that's another option that you have. Not very common, to be honest, to use because usually it's just more plain and simple to manage if you just go for having a site-to-site connection, because there are a lot of other services that can make use of that same connection. That's the idea here in the back. Okay. So another question. Let's say you've got an on-prem resource and you want Azure to use it. How easy or hard it is? It's really not that hard if you have a private connection already established, Eric, because it's really, you will have just a connection like if everything was on the cloud or everything was on-prem. So you just need to understand what is the URI of your resource that you're trying to get, and you will get there. Okay, so let's imagine a REST service that you have on-prem, and it's like my REST service dot my company dot local, because when you join the two networks, you will have to have a common DNS server, and so that internal DNS server will understand where you need to go. So yeah, it's the first time that you set up probably is not that straightforward, but once it's set up, it's really just use it.
So Adwait had a question. It says, will you be covering how to use the ASE to structure a three-tiered application?
Okay, so no, the ASE is not, I didn't cover here, okay? But you can use this to establish a three-tier application, okay? You can use, for example, the web app service to host a REST service, to rest the front end, and then you have a database server in SQL database, and you have a three-tier application there. So another question is GDPR. Is here, how would you explain to a client that is worried about their data being on the cloud and being outside the territory? So there is, I'm not an expert on GDPR to understand you. I really not an expert on GDPR, so I'm not a lawyer, just as said, but I don't have any customers, and I have very large customers, and one of them is a bank that we have certain things on the cloud, mainly on Azure, and the GDPR has a lot of concerns, but not the thing within. They need to be within the country. Okay, so that was not a concern from them, mainly because they are a European company. They are using West Europe and North Europe, but that was not a concern from their part. But once again, I'm not an expert on GDPR. But to talk a little bit about that, so if there are a lot of services in certain regions, if you stick to a region, your data is not going to leave that region unless you said so, like I did here. Because when I did this, the geo-replication for the database, so I sent it even through cross-continent. And well, that happened because I told him, so just move the data. If you, for example, you have an Azure storage account and you just say to your storage account, there you go, you are there. And it's local redundant storage, which is a type. Your data is not going to leave that region. There are another type like georeplication. Georeplication will use the pair region, the ones that we just explained in the beginning of the presentation. And that will not leave that pair region or the other one. So that's not a problem, okay? So that's not a problem, okay? Okay, so encryption at rest, we already have that on Azure SQL databases, okay? So we already have the possibility to encrypt all the data at rest. And also on the Azure storage accounts, you can encrypt everything that's there. Okay, I think I just went through all the questions. Is that right?
That looks like it to me. Yep.
Okay, so thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hope to see you in another webinar someday.
Thanks, Tiago.